Okay, folks, good evening. I'm going to start this session. I got a couple hours in me, probably, about two. And wanted to do something different. So I wanted to paint up one of the 20 millimeter vehicles that I've had a long time and not finished. And hell, I've had this thing probably 25 years and done very little with it. And here it is. It is extremely heavy because it is all white metal. And it is a 1/72nd scale or 20 millimeter, which isn't really a scale. But it is a 20 millimeter tank which happens to have a 20 millimeter cannon. And it is a Panzer II F. And it is a model really. It had, one, two, three, four pieces to it. So all of the running gear was all one piece on either side, and the turret, is separate, obviously, so you can turn it. It's by a company called RAFM. And I don't really know what the hell they stand for. I used to think they were related to Raul Partha somehow, but I don't think that they are. I believe they're Canadian, or they used to be. And so we're gonna paint this guy up. I doubt we can get him done in 2 hours because it's kind of a little intensive. I just had to go look at my notes to see kind of what method I used on this. And this just has some Panzer Gray on it that I probably put on circa 1995 or something like that. So we're gonna start from scratch and paint this thing going forward. In precise comparison, I do have a couple of other 20 millimeter vehicles, and I'm gonna bring those out. Things that might be a fair match for this little guy. And a couple of Russian vehicles. A BT-7 and a BA-6 armored car. What's interesting is both of these vehicles have very similar armor to each other. One of them's tracked, one of them's not. They both have a 45 millimeter cannon. Whereas this has a 20 millimeter cannon. Now, what's interesting about all three of these vehicles is they all have a main weapon that is fired by the commander of the vehicle. So I don't know what the crew on this thing. I think this is a 4-man crew. You've got a driver, you've got an assistant machine gunner that sits up here. It's got a ball-mounted DP machine gun. DP or a DT? It might be the one for the vehicle, might be DT. And he sits up here. And then the turret is a 2-man turret. You have a loader, and then you have the commander/gunner. So he's got his hands full. Loading, he's firing the weapon, and he can't really command the crew while he's doing that. Both of these have the same weapon. They both have a 45 millimeter gun, also a 2-man turret. This one just has a driver in a center position, and this is actually a three-person tank, light tank. And the Russians made tons of these. I mean, thousands, like tens of thousands of them. I forget what the exact count is, but I think more than 5,000 of them. A lot. They had a lot of them. And they didn't last very long because they either broke down or got shot to pieces by the blitzkrieg that got unleashed on them. So this is a 1941 type of vehicle. And both of these actually are resin kits made by a company called BP Cast that I got in probably somewhere around 2001. And I did these last year. So I'm going to One of the things that I've wanted to do is to work on the World War II rules that I use, or refamiliarize myself with them. And one of the projects that I want to do is do some tank-to-tank stuff. Honestly, I really haven't done any of it. I think I know how the rules work, but this will be an excuse to paint an opposing tank. So we're going to paint the Panzer II F, and these were used in early Barbarossa all the way through. I'm not sure that these were in France. I'd have to go through and get some details. I think that the earlier versions were the ones that were in France. But they served in 1941 all the way into probably early 43. And not that they were very effective at any point in that. It's basically a heavy recon vehicle. It's got a 20 millimeter cannon, which sometimes you will see pictures of it painted in the dark gray color of the vehicle. And sometimes you will see it painted black, like it's basically a large machine gun. But it is a magazine fired weapon. I forget exactly how many are in the magazine. I want to say 10 rounds. And it's basically an autocannon. So this would be the equivalent of, say, one of these to kind of do a little rule, basically playthrough on my own. But this is what it is. Like I said, this is made by a company called Rafam. They are actually still in business, or at least they still have a web presence, and you can still order their stuff. And it was just 3 pieces. So at some point, I think I probably just sprayed this Panzer Gray. So we're going to go over it like this was the primer and go from there. All right? So the first thing we're going to do is get our Panzer Gray color, which I believe is a color that is recommended, called German Gray 995, is what they recommended in it. And it is really hot here. Let's get some airflow in here. Dark sea blue, no. No, we're not gonna do that. Let's find our Panzer. Let's find our German Gray 995. German Gray. And it has a little twinge of a blue. There's kind of a big controversy. I don't know about a big controversy, but a couple different opinions on exactly what this Panzer Gray used to look like. Some people claim it has a little bit of blue in it. Some people don't. I like the way it looks like with a little blue, but I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So I'm not going to tinker with this German Gray color and make it look more bluish by adding a little bit of blue or something to it. I had to remember the method that I used to paint these other 2 vehicles that I was really happy with. So what we're going to do is we're going to overall paint it in this color. We're not going to add black to it and go any darker. Then we're going to lighten some of it up. And then we're going to do some washes, seal it, and then dry brush dirt colors. So we're going to have some couple different things that I don't normally do. All right, so let's just hop to it. And I did super glue this thing to a piece of cork to see if I can manhandle this a little bit better. So if you wanted to see Huns being painted tonight, I'm afraid you're not going to get that tonight. It's I'm not sure what we'll do in the morning. We'll probably continue finishing this guy. I'd like to put this thing on a stand and at some point start working on familiarizing myself with these rules. So let's see how watery this is. Very watery. I believe this was a spray. I don't remember who it was made by. But yeah, you can tell the difference here. This is going to be a much darker color. So we're going to go over this thing. And a lot of people use an airbrush to paint vehicles. I am not a fan of airbrushes. I don't want to spend the time cleaning up after them. See if we can get a bigger brush so we can finish, in a week or something. This should be fine. We're going to need more paint than this. Couple viewers, welcome. Have a seat. Pull up a chair. This watery grave here. This color sat a long time. I'd put a mixing bowl in there, but I just think it's just going to make a big mess. And actually, while I'm thinking about it, let's go get helpful hands out here. I believe I have it up here. Yep. Helpful hands. Just going to attach this to the bottom. Now, one of the great big connotations when you're making tank models is you need to decide whether or not you're going to put a commander figure sticking out of the hatch. This particular vehicle didn't come with an option of having the hatch open, which is fine. And since it is a two-man turret, this is also a three-man tank. You have a driver. I believe you actually might be a four-man tank. Driver, radio operator, commander / gunner, and then a loader. So again, if the guy's poking his head out of the top, he's not firing the weapon. So I'm not a fan of putting guys that are crew exposed, unbuttoned, on a vehicle that has a commander that has a crew function other than management, because they're not going to be firing if he's out there sticking his head out. So we're going to go over this. And I've probably had this thing for every bit of close to 30 years. Okay, we set this off to the side because that's done. Let's paint this hull. And I plan on doing this for a couple hours, but I've only gotten a couple hours of sleep, so I may be being awfully optimistic. What's everybody up to today? That's a few folks on here, but everybody's quiet, sitting on the edge of their seat, waiting for the shoe to fall off or drop. I'm actually real tired. Let me go grab some coffee. I'll be right back. Maybe I get a chance for some folks to come in here. Just a second. Okay. Yeah, the idea of painting this in the garage where I would have to use an airbrush is just unacceptable. Unacceptable. It's just way too hot. I've got no interest in doing anything even remotely like that. So we're going to do all of this in this color. Then we will lighten it up, and do some dry brushing. And then we'll give it some washes. We'll have to give it a brown wash and a black wash. The brown wash everywhere. Actually, I need to paint the road wheels and stuff before I get to that. Before we get there, if you look at pictures of tanks or whatever, even if they're a tank that's colored in gray or something like that, all of the gray that's behind the running wheels here is always dusty or brown or has caked mud. I'm not going to go in there and model a bunch of caked mud. You know, these are wargaming figures after all. We're not building a diorama. So we don't need to be like uber detailed with that stuff. Man, it's like a deaf mute convention today. Come on in, folks. Don't be shy. Those 4 hours of sleep that I got. Well, that was weird. Something fell off and it wasn't the turret. Now I need a clip. That's good. Those 4 hours of sleep I got last night are catching up to me now. Okay. We're going to get some white. I could use another color, but I'm good with white. Makes it real easy to remember what color you used if you always use white. And we're going to lighten up a little bit. We're not going to go batshit crazy. may actually have to take a nap. Because we're not getting much traction here. Well, I'm gonna actually call it. I'm gonna call it a night. I can't stay up any longer, and as much as I want to do this, I need to get some interaction. I'm falling asleep, so we'll catch you guys in the morning at our normal time, and we'll pick up after what we left off with this. Until next time, folks.